And I would like to call to order the Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, January 14, 2025. Are there any speakers related to closed session topics? Thank you. Seeing none, the board will convene to closed session. Open session of the Board of Education meeting. I'm sorry. The board will now convene open session and report out from closed session. Open session of the Board of Education meeting is live on YouTube. Visit the NHUSD Board of Education webpage for the link. If you're attending online via Zoom, use the raise hand feature to indicate you wish to provide public comment. Phone participants should press *9 to be added to the queue and wait to be called on. Community members may submit public comments to the board via email at publiccomment@nhusd.k12.ca.us before each meeting. The board received no public comments via email for tonight's meeting. I would like to remind the public that the board will not be responding to questions posed by those making public comments. Relative to closed session item 3.1, the board voted unanimously to appoint Eric Chu as the Director of Facilities and Construction. The board took no action for closed session items 3.2 through 3.4.
If you want to take a moment, but Eric is in the audience if you'd like to meet him. So
Rick,
Eric, you want to come on up real quick and say hello?
congratulations.
Hi, I'm really glad that I'm on board right now, and I appreciated to meet you in person. And I don't know, I didn't prepare for say anything, so I'm very excited. But thank you very much, and I'm sure that I will use my talent to contribute the district.
Thanks, Eric, and welcome to New Haven. All right, moving on to item 5, procedural items. I will hand it over to Vice President Rafay.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have roll call, please?
Here.
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 May I have motion and second to approve tonight's agenda?
Second.
Discussion? Record your vote, please.
Yes. I'm sorry, fat fingers.
I don't have. Mm-mm.
Go ahead and do a verbal vote.
We'll do verbal vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carried. Thank you. Now, may I have someone to read line acknowledgement? I'll read one. Okay. So I'll read the acknowledgement. We want to open this meeting by acknowledging with respect and love that the land we are on today is the traditional ancestral homeland of the Ohlone Chochenyo First People. We recognize and thank the Ohlone people as the original stewards of this land. Indigenous people must not be spoken about in past contexts as if they left on their own accord, when the real causes were white supremacy, manifest destiny, and US colonization. By recognizing we stand on the occupied indigenous territory of Ohlone people, we recommit ourselves to listen to Native leadership and stand in solidarity with people struggling against systems of oppression throughout the world, past and present.
Thank you, Vice President Rafi. We are using a new system, so bear with us. All right, we're moving on to item 6.1, public comment on topics that are not on the agenda. Are there any blue cards for topics that are not on the agenda? Thank you. Moving on to 7.1, public comments. Are there any speakers via Zoom for topics? Thank you. Item 7.1, public comments on topics on the agenda. Are there any blue cards for topics on the agenda? Okay, great, thank you. Moving on to item 8, reports from our labor partners. Do we have CSEA in the house? No, all right. NHTA? No, all right. Moving on to item 9.1, we have Mr. John Shockley from the New Haven Schools Foundation, who will share information about the 2025 gala.
All right. Want to extend my thank you to the board for having us here today. As you see, we have our largest fundraiser of the year coming up in January, later this month. It's only a week and a half away. So Saturday, January 25th at 6 o'clock, from 6 to 10, we're going to have our gala this year. It's at Paradise Ballroom in Fremont. Cocktail hour is from 6 to 7. And we have a sit-down dinner this year starting at 7. So that's a little nicer than what we've had in the past. We'll be recognizing our own Tina Bobadilla Mastel as a Guy Emanuel Service Award winner, Don Foods as a Tom Kitayama Business Award winner. We also have some entertainment this year. So we have a headliner we haven't had in the past. Sean Reddy is a professional comedian, will be doing a show for us. He is also a Logan graduate, class of 2005, so that's going to be really nice. We again have Ellen Toscana, the singing auctioneer. She'll be conducting our live auction this year, as she's done in the past. So we're looking forward to that. We have some trips. We have our party wagon. We have a lot of the normal and some new items that we're going to be auctioning off. Also have our silent auction. We'll have a DJ for dancing and casino games as usual. Tickets are $175 per person. This year, we're offering tickets at $150 for a teacher discount. So we're trying to get more of our schools, more of our teaching staff there. Also offering VIP tables for $1,800. So that's for 10 people. It includes more casino chips, a nicer location, and recognition in our program. So we encourage you to buy tickets, buy tables. We also want to thank the districts already purchased a table, as well as New Haven Administrators Association, New Haven Teachers Association, and Friends of Alvarado Elementary. So we've already got one school lined up with a table. So encourage you to come. It's going to be a nice night out. And thank you again for having us here. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Looking forward to the event. Moving on to item 9.2, we have Ms. Stevens from the Division of Teaching and Learning to present a dashboard update, or not. We have Mr. Matos doing it.
I am not Ms. Stevens, although I get that all the time. Good evening, President Kumar, trustees, Dr. Thompson. My name is John Matos. I am the district's Director of Digital Services, and I'm here today to give you the annual dashboard update. And as you remember, the dashboard looks backwards, so we're going to be looking at 23-24 data. And this has got to be me with this remote. So the California dashboard is the state's public-facing district and school evaluation instrument. And it has had kind of a rocky history. It started probably closer to 10 years ago and was paused during the pandemic. And so they're getting things back to where it was before the pandemic, and they're adding things. But what this is really intended to do is to give the public a very simple, quick, and easy way to assess how schools and school districts are doing. And they do that by the use of colors, red through blue, with red being poor and blue being really strong. And so where there's a number of different measures, depending on the school level. There are some high school measures specifically, there's some K-8 measures specifically, and then there are measures that cover K-12. The state determines each of the colors for these areas based on two factors. How the school did, or how the district did in a how they performed on a measure. That is on the kind of the column on the far left, starting from very low all the way up to very high. And that kind of places them on that chart. And then they look to see how that compares to what they did last year. Did they improve? Did they decline? Or did they stay the same? And then where those two rows and columns intersect, that determines the color. And so again, red, orange, yellow, green, blue from lowest to highest. And so, as I said, the dashboard is bringing new pieces on often. There are a couple of new pieces this year. The first new piece is the new student group, which is the long-term English learners. And these are students who have been identified as an English learner and stayed an English learner for 7 years. There are some other, in the state of California, some other definitions of long-term English learners, but this is for the function of the dashboard, how they determine who long-term English learners are. You'll see this population of students with all the other populations of students. All those will get a color on every measure as well. And I'll show you when we go through where you can find that. The next new piece added this year is the science indicator. And the science indicator is based on our fifth graders or eighth graders and our high school students when they take the CAST, the California Science Test. I'm going to talk a little bit about how they determine how students did. I'll do that in just a second. But what's important for this year is because this is the first year schools and districts are only going to get that performance indicator because there won't be a previous year. There won't be an intersection to kind of determine the color. And so the work of the State Board of Education this year is going to be to determine what is low on the CAST, what is high on the CAST, what is a significant improvement or maintaining. They're going to figure all that this year so that for the following year, we'll get a color. And I'll show you what that would look like when we talk about the college and career indicator. So let's get started and we'll talk about English language arts. Now, for this particular measure, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this slide than similar slides throughout the presentation, just to kind of orient you to kind of the pattern and how I have it set up. Okay, so for the English language arts, the score is based on how students did on the SBAC. That is that test that the students in 3rd through 8th and then 11th grade take in the spring. When schools look at proficiency on assessments, we often just look at the binary. Is a student proficient or not? For the state has a slightly different way of looking at it. When students take the SBAC, they get a scaled score, and it's like from 2,200 to like 3,600. And depending on where they score, depending on that scaled score, they'll either be, they'll get 1 of 4 scores, a 1, which is below, 2, approaching, 3, proficient, and 4, advanced. And so what they do for these academic measures is they determine what scaled score is the lowest score you can get and be proficient. Just kind of cross into that 3. And then for all the students that have taken that test, they see how far away they are from that cut point, either below or above. So they'll take every student in the district, every student at the school, every student in the subgroup, and they'll average their scores away from the standard. They call it the distance from standard to determine their achievement. So distance from standard is how they're going to measure English, math, and now science. If you were to click on that detailed school data, which we're not going to do, you'll get a sheet that has how every single one of our schools did. You'll also, on the right-hand side, you'll see the last 3 years of achievement on most of these measures. During the pandemic, the dashboard was suspended. And so when they brought it back, that first year that they did it for 21-22, there wasn't a previous year. So there was only kind of a status. And then starting in 22-23, we had the status and the change, and we could get the colors. So you can see over the last couple of years what our status and change was. This is they call this the baseball card. This is the district's baseball card. Unfortunately, we are in an orange. We are on average of all of our students, we are 5.9 points from standard. That's our distance from standard. They say we maintained, even though we went up almost a point, which is good. If you were to click that student group link, you would see all the student populations in the district. The long-term English learners, homeless, all of our ethnicities, foster students, students with disabilities, all of those students will have, they'll have a color. They'll see how they did they'll see how they did this year and what that was compared to last year, and they'll have a color assigned. This is a slide for English language arts that the county provides for us. And when you first look at it, you're like, we're never going to figure this out, but it's actually, it's not that hard. On the left-hand side, all the districts are indicated alphabetically, and I've outlined us in orange because that was our color. And you can see in that box, there's the 5.9 distance from standard. That perpendicular orange line kind of, right near where it says 4925, that is where the state is. So the state overall, students were 13.2 points below. That's their distance from standard. So we did better than the state, still not where we want to be. You can see for all the other school districts in the county where they are, some are above, some are below. And then on the right side, you can see generally how they did, if they went up a little bit or down a little bit. And so we went up a little bit. A number of folks went down, some others went up. So not where we want to be, but we're moving in the right direction. Math, pretty much the same thing. Measured by the SBAC, they determine the distance from standard for all of our populations. You can see how we did over the last couple of years. If you click on that detailed school data, you will see how our schools did overall. Overall, the district, we do a little better in language arts than we did in math, with 46 points below standard. Said we maintained, even though we went up almost 2 points. You click on the student group button and you'll be able to see how all of our student groups did. Looking at the county and the state, as I said, we are 46 points below standard, just doing slightly better than the state at 47.6. Negative 47.6 distance from standard. We went up. A number of other schools went up. Not a whole lot of change in general across the county. As I mentioned, science is brand new this year. We only have a performance. We only have a status. We have no change. So we're not going to have a color. 12 points below standard. You can see how each school did and how each student population did by clicking on those links. Next year, we will have a status, a change, and a color. Moving out of SBAC, we're looking at our English learner progress. And the progress, this measure is based on the LPAC, and that is the language proficiency test that our English language learners take in the spring. Well, actually started taking in February. And when an English learner takes that assessment, they too are typically put in get a score of 1 through 4. What the state of California did for this measure was instead of having 4 different scores, they wanted 6. So they split the 2 and they split the 3. So there's a 1, a low 2, a high 2, a low 3, a high 3, and a 4. And what they want to see is each of our English learners moving up at least 1. If they stay at 2, if they go from low 2 to high 2, that counts. Low 3 to high 3, that counts. So they need to move up 1 of those 6 levels. Some volatility, if you look at the box on the right, from high to very low, medium to low, high to high. This is the one we did not do as great as we wanted to this year. We got an orange. We scored an orange with 44.5% of our students making progress, our English learners making progress, and that went down 3.6%. And if you look at how the county did overall, there is a lot of decline for this measure. We're at 44.5% of our English language learners moving up 1. The state is at 45.7, so we're underperforming there. But generally, most of the county, except for just a couple, really saw a decrease in this measure. Next is the college and career indicator. This is one of the high school measures only. And in this measure, they are looking at how well students are prepared to either enter the workforce or to continue on to college. There are a number of different ways that students can qualify or meet the criteria as college ready. And there's a link there if you want to kind of look at those, but that's things like, you know, scoring as proficient on the SBAC, meeting all the A through G, scoring, you know, a 3 on AP tests, those sorts of things would qualify you for college readiness. For career readiness, again, there's a number of ways that students can meet that criteria. And if you click that, you can see, but that's things like taking being part of a pre-apprenticeship program, taking CTE courses and completing that with a capstone course. There's a number of different ways. You click on the detailed school data, you'll see how our 3 high schools did. Kind of a mixed bag there. We are a yellow with 39.1% of our students either meeting the college or career readiness. And we went up almost a point, 0.8%, but that's a maintained for the state. We are underperforming the state. We're at 39.1%. The state's at 45.3. We are moving in the right direction as well as a lot of our other neighboring districts. Next is the chronic absenteeism indicator. And this is just an elementary and middle school indicator, not high school. And for this indicator, they are looking for students or looking at students who have missed 10% of the school year. 180 days, 10% is 18 days, which really is only 2 days a month, right? It's only 2 days a month and you could be chronically absent. This is not like truancy. This doesn't matter. We're not talking about, is it an excused absence or an unexcused absence? If you're sick and mom calls you in, it counts. If you went to the dentist, it counts. If you went to the beach, it counts. So it's just, were you there or not? And you can see at the elementary level, pretty, we're all medium. There's a little bit of volatility in our middle schools. And that's something that we're going to be looking at. We are a yellow as a district, 20.9% chronically absent. We declined 3.9%. And this is one of the few where you want to decline. This is where we want to do. We went down almost 4%. And just to kind of put it in perspective, before the pandemic, that percent chronically absent was probably closer to 8 or 9%. And I think what you're really seeing, and when we look at the county, what you're really seeing is, you know, parents keeping their kids home when they're sick, where before the pandemic, unless you were bleeding from your eyes, you sent your kid to school, your kid went to school, but now we're a little bit more cautious. We don't want to spread anything, and so we're keeping them home. We are at 20.9%. The state average is 18.6%, but a lot of districts are making moves in the right direction, really kind of getting back to where they were before the pandemic. Very few are going up. Oakland had a great big drop, but that when I asked the Oakland folks about it, they're like, well, we had a strike. And so they had the following year, there was no strike. And so their attendance looked better. So that is chronic absenteeism. Graduation rate, as you can imagine, is just a high school indicator. And this measure looks at the number of students who started their freshman year, met all their graduation requirements in 4 years and graduated with a diploma. So that 4-year grad rate. It also looks at students from the cohort before who did 4 years, didn't meet all the requirements, came back for a 5th year and then graduated. So those are combined for this measure. This measure does not count things like, you know, if a student passed a high school equivalency exam, or if a student got a special education certificate of completion, that does not count towards the graduation rate. It's just, did you get a diploma? And so a little bit of volatility here in our high schools. For this year, we are green. 87.3% graduated. We increased 2.2, which is what we wanted. We were a low last year, so this is a great move in the right direction. And to put this graduation rate into perspective for you, we have just the last half dozen years of graduation rates for the district and our high schools. Those boxed ones for 1920 and 2021 are simply because there was no dashboard during those years. All the other numbers are from the dashboard, and those numbers are from DataQuest, which is just another California state measure. So it's a little different, but you can see where we were before. We're getting close to where we were before. And last year, Conley Carabello had a great big pop, which I think really helped to move us. Across the county, there is a general trend for graduation rates to increase a little bit. There are some school districts where it went down. We are at 87.3%, which is just a little bit better than the state average. The last indicator that we're going to look at today is our suspension rate indicator. This is a K-12 indicator, and this just counts the number of students who have been suspended for at least one day. If it was 2 half-day suspensions, that counts. 1 one-day suspension, that counts. 3 two-day suspensions, that counts. It only has to be 1 day total. We typically do pretty well in this indicator. There's a lot to green and blues over the last couple of years. And you can see how each school did by clicking on that detailed school data. We're a green. So 1.7% of our students are suspended at least 1 day, and that has gone down 0.7%. So that's moving in the right direction. You can click on the student groups and see how each of our student groups did. There are definitely some differences. Some student groups are suspended at a higher rate than others. Across the county, we're one of the better performers in this indicator. With 1.7% of our students being suspended, that's about half the state average. A lot of districts are moving in the right direction, which is really good. There are a couple of school districts who saw a little pop, but we're moving in the right direction as well as most of the other folks. So if somebody were to ask, what's the overarching message here? I think one takeaway is that in general, all of our dashboard indicators are really moving in the right direction, with the exception of our English learner progress indicator this year. And to kind of address that, we are continuing to provide professional development to our teachers, just like no 2 students are alike, no 2 English learners are alike. And so we're really working to address the wide needs of our EL students. And we're working with our parents to help them to support their English learning students at home so that they can continue to make progress. Another big takeaway is our graduation rate. It went from low to high. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is that last year, you guys, or some of you guys, approved a new graduation path for students, and there are now multiple ways for students to graduate, to meet the graduation requirements. And we're really looking a little bit more closely at our students at Logan, and staff and parents and students are moving a little faster when they see that a student is not having a really good experience at Logan and it might not be the best fit. They're looking to move that student a little earlier into an alternative program where they still have an opportunity to meet the graduation rates. Historically, sometimes the students would stay at Logan, I don't know if you could say too long, but maybe too long, and they got too far behind. And even if they went to an alternative program, there wasn't enough time for them to meet even those graduation requirements. So we're really watching closely, and we're taking action a little bit more quickly. Our new student group is our long-term English learners. And if you were to go through and click on those student group links, you would see that our LTLs are struggling in a lot of measures, attendance, suspension, academic performance. And so we have folks who are really working to monitor these students and to work with these students and talk to these students and try to see what the pain point is for them, and to align some resources to address those and to get them re-engaged or engaged, and to get them coming to school and participating and making the progress that they should be making. And with that, I am happy to take any questions that you might have.
Questions, anyone? No. Fantastic presentation. I actually had questions this morning, but you addressed everything.
Yay, all
Thank
right.
you.
Well, thank you very much.
Going to move on to item 10, informational items. So 10.1, my understanding on annual financial reports is that these will be presented to the board for action at a later part in the agenda.
That's correct. And I think our Assistant Superintendent Heldman just wants to give you an overview of both 10.1 and 10.2.
Oh, okay.
Good evening, trustees, Annette Heldman, your CBO. So at a later part of the agenda, like you said, these will be presented to you for action. In the meantime, for this particular item, I would like to call on Mr. Charles Rabley. He is a representative from our independent audit firm, Crow LLP, to provide an update and overview of the audit process and the bottom line in terms of the results.
All right, thank you very much. So as Ms. Heldman mentioned, my name is Charles Ribley. I'm a senior manager with Crow LLP, and we were engaged to conduct your external financial and compliance audits for both the district as a whole, as well as your Measure M general obligation bonds in accordance with Proposition 39, which requires that external audit. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you, talk a little bit about the audit process and the audit results, address any questions you may have. And I know, as was mentioned, there's an action item later for that overall audit. I'll start just really quickly with talking about, sort of the timing and the process, timing of this process. So we, generally speaking, conduct the external audit in two phases. So we have a sort of an interim and planning phase where we conduct much of the state compliance and federal compliance requirements, and then a year-end phase where we come back and look at the end numbers after you've closed the books for the fiscal year, and then work with management to compile the audit report that ultimately gets provided to you all and to the state of California, to the County Office of Education, et cetera. There are three overarching scopes for the district's audit. If you're looking at the audit report itself, I'd direct your attention to page 90 of the bottom right-hand corner, or if you're looking at a PDF, it would be page 98 of 103. I like this page because it's a good summary of the three scopes for the district's audit. We have the financial statement audit, so looking at the financial statements of the district as a whole. We have your federal awards audit, because you expended more than $750,000 of federal grants and entitlements. You're subject to what they call a uniform guidance audit, federal audit. And then because you're in the state of California, you have requirements specific to the education code, you have a state awards audit as well. So that encompasses many different aspects of the education code, and each different component has all going to come together to be what we call our state awards audit. As you can see on this page at the top under the financial statement sections, all caps, bold font there, it says unmodified under the types of auditor report issued. Unmodified is the highest level of assurance that you can get out of an external financial and compliance audit. So that's where you want to be. And so we also have some questions that are required by government auditing standards for us to ask and answer in this table that follows. So if we had any internal control findings, we have a yes/no response required. So we have one finding that was identified this year that required us to have an audit adjustment. And that anytime we have an audit adjustment, we have a finding that goes along with it. And so we have that as a yes under material weakness. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The second section I mentioned was the federal awards audit. So that's that uniform guidance federal compliance requirement audit. So we also gave an unmodified opinion over that. In this year, we have below in the table, it says identification of major programs, and there's two sort of numbered programs there. You've got your Education Stabilization Fund, so the ESF, or what we call ESSER and GEAR dollars. Those were tested as a major program. And then also your Child Nutrition Cluster was also tested as a major program. And so again, we identified that as a unmodified or clean opinion for the federal audit. And then for the state awards, we also issue an opinion for that, as I mentioned. So that's an unmodified opinion for that as well. Okay. I clicked a button, it jumped all the way to the very front page. Isn't that how it goes? So we have one identified finding for the financial statement this year, we had an adjustment that was necessary to record related to the prior reporting and kind of classification of some of the fiduciary activities. So we pulled that in, those balances that are held in a fiduciary capacity for the OPEB trust at the beginning of the fiscal year. And anytime we do that, we have to adjust. When you think about the district as a whole, that is a pretty small element, but we have to look at the fiduciary activities as a standalone. And so relative to that, it was significant enough to record an adjustment. This is the problem with technology. I should have had a printed copy. And so we had only one other finding related to state compliance, which did not modify our opinion. So we still gave that unmodified opinion for state compliance. And related to independent study, the total fiscal impact of that was 0.02 ADA, or about $300. So obviously not significant when you think about that as a, compared to the size of the district and the operations. So whenever I'll say all this on state compliance, it's, I heard the term binary mentioned earlier in the dashboard presentation. That's kind of the way the state compliance audit is built. Okay.
There you go.
Yep. All the answers. So yeah, it's binary, right? So the audit guide says if it is not compliant, we have to say that in the audit report. And so that's why we include something of such small nature in the state awards finding, because it has to be included no matter what the size. So it either is compliant or is not. And so I think all in summary, the results of the audit are very positive. We've given these unmodified opinions or clean opinions. And this is our Crow's first time auditing this fiscal year. And we really appreciated the opportunity to work with management. We were able to get everything we needed on a timely basis. And that was very important for us to be able to achieve the state's required deadline for submitting this to the state and to the County Office of Education. So appreciate management's efforts significantly, and welcome any questions that you may have about the audit for the district. And then I'll address those, and then we can talk about the bonds.
Does anyone have any questions? No questions.
Okay. So as I mentioned, we also were engaged to audit the Measure M general obligation bonds. So Prop 39 requires an external financial audit of the bonds and a performance audit. The nature of those two is different, the scope of them. So again, Proposition 39 requires this financial audit, basically looking at Measure M as a standalone entity. So we have given an unmodified opinion over the financial statements for Measure M. And then we also conducted a performance audit. So the performance audit is looking at what was spent from those bond proceeds during the year, and were they compliant with not only what's allowable under Prop 39, but also what was approved by the board as a project list, okay? And so you had about 21.7 million of expenditures during the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024. We tested about 9.5 million of those expenditures, so approximately 44% of the expenditures. We looked at supporting documentation such as an invoice, the warrant that was issued to pay that invoice, purchase order, et cetera, and had no compliance issues that we identified. And so again, an unmodified opinion for the performance audit. So good result overall. And we were able to do that because we got the information we needed. It was correct. And we were able to give that ultimately the unmodified opinion for that. Again, I welcome any questions that you may have about that audit as well.
Does anyone have any questions?
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak with you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to item 10.3. I believe the district received 0 complaints under the Williams Act.
Yes, we had 10.2 though first. That was a point of order. That was all 10.1.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
that's
I'm
okay.
sorry. I bet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the governor's budget. I'm sorry.
All right, so the governor held his press meeting. Is there a feedback? Okay. Press meeting for his annual preliminary budget proposals on the 10th. I believe that was Friday. So I'm going to say first that whatever I'm going to tell you tonight is going to be different by the time we start developing the budget. He does this every year to kind of give us an idea. Actually, I start looking for what the following year is going to look like when the LAO releases their report in November. And then it starts from there. So this is a statewide budget. There's different departments for just one of those major categories in the state. You know, there's homelessness, there's health, there's public safety. But the education budget takes a big chunk of the state budget. So I'm going to just talk about the things that actually impact us in New Haven. Well, quite frankly, TK-12 public education, and then locally in terms of what that means to us. COLA, when I presented the first interim to you, we were still using the COLA that was in the Budget Act, which was 2.93%. What we've heard from the press meeting is that that would be about 0.5% lower. So for us, it only means, for round numbers, that the revenue I projected in our LCFF for first interim is going to be lower by about $500,000. Now, there's also a projection for the out year COLAs, and we're not even going to worry about those because those are definitely going to change from this point forward. So in terms of ongoing programs that were that started a few years ago, those are staying intact. UTK is here to stay, at least that's what we're hearing. ELOP is here to stay. Those are the ongoing programs that he promised and that he implemented, and we still have them. So those are going to be continuing in his proposals. He has several one-time proposals for literacy instruction that like at least 6 or 8 that I read. Now, these are different areas all towards literacy, different dollar amounts here and there. And when I say a number, that means it's statewide. So when you think about it, there's about 1,000 school districts up and down the state, and there's about 6 million students up and down the state. What's not clear at this point is these dollars. A lot of times when he proposes something, he would also say how that's going to be allocated, whether it's by the number of pupils we have, by the ADA that we have, by the level of unduplicated pupil percentage that we have. A lot is unknown at this point. But again, there's a whole slew of one-time dollars, most of them coming from Proposition 98, which is the major source of our funds. That's why I always say if it's from Prop 98, you're not giving me any new money. You're just taking it from a different area. But he wants to focus, when he does that, he wants to focus on certain specific programs. I'll give you a few examples. He's proposing $500 million in one time for TK literacy and math coaches. There's actually another interesting thing. It's $5 million one time, but annually, and we're going to get it until 2029-30. So these are things that we're hearing at this point, and there's a whole list of them. There's actually one that is discretionary. So when we hear discretionary, that gives us a lot of flexibility, especially for districts that have a specific need somewhere else, that we can actually use that for general purpose in order to either implement something or balance our budget, which we're not in that situation, luckily, these days. But here's an example. That proposal is $1.8 billion. And while it didn't say how that's going to be allocated, I immediately look at it and say, oh, okay, that's probably about going to be $300 for ADA. So what's my ADA? Just under 10,000. So then I start calculating those numbers. Now, there's more. All of these numbers will be revised. Some of them will probably stay in the actual budget, and some of them will probably be reworked. But we will hear the update to the January proposals in May. For now, those are the big stories. A COLA that's going to be a little less than what was initially promised. But overall, in general, it sounds like the economy is actually doing better than anticipated compared to what was said in the 2024 Budget Act, which is the budget that he enacted in June last year. So we'll hear more, and there's a lot to unpack at this point. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the overview. All right, 10.3, Williams Uniform Complaint.
As usual, nothing to report.
Great. Going to move on to 10.4, items from the board and superintendent. I will start from the far end. Student trustee Buenaflor.
Good evening, everyone. Last Friday, we had a winter rally to welcome kids back from break, which was a ton of fun and a huge success. This week is also Club Rush Week, where clubs can advertise themselves to potential members in the new semester. Monday was for STEM clubs. Today was service clubs. Thursday, cultural clubs, and Fridays for recreational clubs. There's also a Martin Luther King forensics tournament coming up this weekend. Good luck, debate team. On the 25th is the New Haven School Foundation Gala. I'm actually going to be volunteering. Please buy tickets. It's going to be a blast. On the 28th is our electives fair where we present all of our amazing programs and hopefully get people to join them, like leadership, ESSJ, Logan Live, and yeah. And the LCAP survey was recently sent out to students. So if you know a Logan student, please tell them to fill it out. Student voice is super important in budget planning. And thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. Student trustee Waka.
This week we're having a scholarship and financial aid meeting for seniors and parents. We also are having a NWA reading and math test. And we also are having a health and wellness fair coming up this week with 6 guest speakers presenting to classes combined together. And then lastly, soccer trials completed and our season is beginning this week. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Trustee Gonzalez.
Yeah, I just want to mention HR 82, which President Biden signed on Sunday. And it is the House resolution. It's 40 years in the making. What it is just Social Security. Teachers were not, in California that is, were not allowed to get Social Security benefits. But with this passing, now we do. Originally in 1965, when the Act for Social Security came up, they were service employees. We were included in there, but it wasn't until the 50s where they changed that over. In some states, they say you pay into STRS, a different retirement, so you don't need the Social Security. But you know, with the prices rising, cost of living, you definitely need this. And so, for example, for myself, I was short 6 years to get my 40 units for Social Security benefits, and when I retired, I was planning on working another 6 years after. Now I don't have to do that anymore. There's still the administration of Social Security is still working out the details, but now I can bank on that to happen, and especially this is just huge for the educators and new educators. Unfortunately, they have to, for their STRS, they have to work an additional couple of years. It's not like my wife has to work a couple more years. But with the Social Security, that'll also be included. So it's a blessing for everybody in education. So that's all I have to report.
Trustee Irby.
Nothing to report at this time.
Trustee Freeberg.
The only thing I think I would need to report is last month I went to my first CS school board conference, which was great. I got to meet educators and other trustees. And today, Trustee Irby and I did site visits. So we went to every single site. It was great.
Vice President Rafay.
So I'd like to share with you guys this Tri-City Voice newspapers like December 31st here are very like own Logan Live is highlighted on page 17. Do please check it out. And the other thing that I would like to share is like I attended the Alameda County School Board Association meeting yesterday in which they talked about the school board and the like the superintendent, how the functionality of the school board. And it so happened that we will be having our school board training on coming Friday, and they kind of emphasize on that. And so I'm glad, we are doing that. Thank you, Thompson.
Thank you. I am under the weather, so I'm going to conserve my voice for the rest of the meeting. Dr. Thompson.
Just a few items. Our staff, we are working on putting together resources for our families that are concerned about the potential immigration problems that may come with the new administration. So a resource package so they know what their rights are, what we can do, what we do, how we support them. So that's coming. We'll be working with that with a variety of our different parent groups. In consensus, I'm going to ask the board to consider passing a resolution in an upcoming meeting to support the educational rights of our students regardless of immigration status. So that'll be coming. But a lot of work on that, a lot of concern from some of our families. On a positive note, the board passed the MOU with Cal State East Bay for guaranteed admission for students that meet the minimum criteria. Thursday at 8:45 in the Performing Arts Center, we are bringing in all the students who qualify, 540 of them. And we're in joint partnership with Cal State East Bay. We're going to have a presentation and kind of share with them and celebrate that. All of you are invited if you want to come. Just let Gina know. And that's exciting. The gala coming up is exciting. And as Trustee Benefor pointed out, we have our national forensics tournament this weekend. And I want to just call attention to Mr. Karup, who spends an inordinate amount of time preparing his students and for this tournament. So kudos to him, and I want to thank him for his efforts. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11, committee reports. We'll begin with the Finance, Technology, and Facilities Committee.
Nothing new to report.
Thank you. Next, we have Communication and Advocacy. We are meeting next on Thursday, Jan 16th at 4 p.m. Next up is Policy Review Committee. We're meeting Tuesday, Feb 11th at 4:30 p.m. Right. Yes. All right. And then next up, we have any other committee reports? I'll go ahead, Vice President.
So Mission ROP meeting is on January 16th. And yesterday was New Haven Unified School District. New Haven Schools Foundation's meeting was yesterday, in which so for that, if you have not gotten gala tickets, you still have time to buy from the foundation website, which is diamondsineducation.com. And the other thing is, as of 2024 New Haven Schools Foundation scholarships recipients, you still have time to claim your scholarship funds till January 31st. And Logan High School, CCMS, and CCHS and DSIS classes of 2025, your scholarship application period opens on Feb 1st and closes on March 2nd. Please do try to avail that. And also teachers can apply for grants starting from February 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Rafay. And I have an update from the Joint School Board Subcommittee meeting. We met on January 6th. We learned that 8th Street is going to be closed starting April, probably all through summer due to water pipe fitting. I think that was the reason. We also learned that Route 8 of Safe Routes to School has doubled its ridership, so that's pretty cool from last year. And the joint use agreement and the land swap have been completed, so that's great news. Our next meeting is May 5th. Any other committee reports? All right, we will then move on to action items. Gina, should we just do the traditional way? Sure. All right, we'll start with item 12.1. May I have a volunteer to read resolution number 0302425, Black History Month, February 2025? Trustee Freeberg?
New Haven Unified School District Resolution number 030-2425, Black History Month, February 2025. Whereas February is proclaimed as National Black History Month in honor of Americans of African ancestry who helped develop our nation in countless ways. And whereas the history and contributions of African American citizens have been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the curriculum of public education institutions. And whereas African Americans have consistently led the charge for justice and a governance system that is truly by the people, for the people, as our U.S. Constitution states. And whereas African American communities continue to be plagued by injustices today and continue to march and participate in every effort to secure, protect, and maintain the essence and substance of American democracy as reflected by California Education Code Section 37220, which establishes the third Monday in January to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his role in the civil rights movement, and California Education Code Section 37221D, which establishes March 5th as Black American Day to commemorate the anniversary of the death of Crispus Attucks, the first American martyr of the Boston Massacre, and Education Code Section 37220E, and June 17th, 2021, United States Government Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, S.475, creating a federal holiday to commemorate Juneteenth celebrating the anniversary of the last enslaved African people being freed. And whereas awareness of the systematic marginalization of African American communities has never been greater due to tragic events such as the killing of George Floyd, the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, and the new focus on racial justice and equity by our federal government, as evidenced by White House Executive Order 13985, advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities. And whereas we recognize that the long, rich history of Americans with African ancestry predates the U.S. Constitution, and African American history does not begin with slavery, but rightly represents the long continuum of a people demanding that honor be given to being human. Whereas it is important that the curriculum in our schools at every grade level reflects the experiences of Black people of different racial, religious, cultural, and ethnic groups, so that all students have an opportunity to understand the common humanity underlying all groups, develop pride in their own identity and heritage, and to understand, respect, and accept the identity, culture, and heritage of others. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the New Haven Unified School District commemorate February as Black History Month with appropriate instructional activities to recognize the countless contributions that Americans of African ancestry have made in helping our nation achieve greatness. Passed and adopted by the following called vote this 16th day of January 2025.
Thank you, Trustee Freeberg. May I have a motion and second to adopt resolution number 0302425, Black History Month, February 2025?
So moved.
Seconded.
Discussion? Record your vote, please. No. Now I do. All right, we'll do this the traditional way. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item 12.2, may I have a motion and second to adopt resolution number 032-2425, pregnancy leave, AB 65.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.3, may I have a motion and second to adopt resolution number 029-2425, acknowledging the Proposition 2 Facilities Master Plan requirement.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item 12.4, may I have a motion and second to adopt resolution number 033-2425, acknowledgement of results and passage of Measure N.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.5, may I have a motion and second to adopt resolution number 034-2425, authorizing the purchase of audio enhancement systems and services and approve the related proposals and purchase agreements.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.6, may I have a motion and second to approve the annual financial report for the 2023-24 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.7, may I have a motion and second to approve the financial and performance audit of the 2014 general obligation bond, Measure M, for the 2023-24 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.8, may I have a motion and second to ratify service agreement with San Diego County Office, the SDCOE, for designated subjects of education, July 2024 through June 2027.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.9, may I have a motion and second to approve the adoption of Punjabi 1 textbooks and workbooks, instructional materials for grades 9th through 12th.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.10, may I have a motion and second to approve the MOU with the Alameda County Office of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.11, may I have a motion and second to approve a new course at Conley Caraballo High School, Digital Imaging 1, beginning fall of 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12.12, may I have a motion and second to approve a new course at James Logan High School, Physical Therapy Aid, beginning fall of 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item 13. Are there any items from the consent agenda that any board member would like to pull for a separate vote? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion and second to approve items 13.1 through 13.15?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. Abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to item 14, since there was nothing removed from consent agenda, we can move on to item 15. Item 15 is assessment of governance procedures and protocols. Does anyone have any comments related to this item? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 16, board consensus. Do any board members or the superintendent have any requests for us? Go ahead, Vice President Rafay.
So it's just a follow-up, Dr. Thompson, to recognize our Logan Live students. So
Yes, thank you. We have a date, I think, scheduled. The Logan Live coming to the board meeting. February 18th is when they're
thank
scheduled.
you, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? Dr. Thompson?
Yes, I would like the board to consider passing a resolution to reaffirm the educational rights of all of our students regardless of immigration status. I don't know if there's interest in that.
Do we have consensus?
Yes.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
great. So can we bring this to policy review?
If that's okay, we'll agendize it for the February 11 Policy Review Committee and then bring it to the board at the following board meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. I would like to adjourn this meeting in honor of Patty Gonzalez, a retired Logan campus security technician. Patty had worked for years supporting New Haven Unified and the community. And we lost Patty in December, and our hearts go out to her family. This meeting is adjourned at 7:48 p.m. Thank you.